We arrived in the late afternoon, our tires kicking up red dust as the canyon finally swallowed the road. My name's Ethan Reyes, adventure vlogger, semi-popular on YouTube, and addicted to chasing places people say you shouldn't go. With me was Jules, my best friend since college. Smart, grounded, the kind of guy who reads warning signs instead of turning them into clickbait. We had driven 10 hours into southern Utah, chasing a whisper from a local Reddit thread about Coyote Ridge, a canyon supposedly cursed. The coordinates matched an unmarked path leading into Bureau of Land Management land, part of it bordering a fenced-off native burial site. There were no signs, no warnings, just that raw silence the desert keeps like a secret. We found an old hunting cabin tucked behind a stand of juniper trees. Doors creaked, floorboards sagged, and the walls were lined with pinned maps, yellowed sketches of the canyon, and scribbled notes. Don't look behind you after sunset. Stay out of the circle. One dusty leather-bound journal sat under a collapsed shelf. It belonged to a park ranger named Edwin Kell, dated 1957. He wrote about patrols disrupted by voices in the night, bones rearranged into spirals, and dreams of a figure wearing his skin. Check this out, Jules said, thumbing through the final pages. A sketch showed a ring of bones, sun-bleached skulls, long femurs, twisted antlers, surrounding a smooth black altar. Underneath in frantic scrawl, "Do not step inside the bone circle." Perfect, I laughed, but Jules didn't. He didn't like the idea of filming here, but I could see curiosity gnawing at him too. We packed the camera, a drone, and a flashlight and set out as the canyon shadows stretched long. An hour's hike later, we found it. The bone circle. It lay in a rocky depression beneath a natural arch, just like the sketch. Dozens of bones arranged in a perfect ring, some clearly human. At the center stood a stone pillar, weathered and veined like petrified wood, no taller than my waist. It radiated heat, though the air around us had cooled. "Ethan," Jules murmured, backing away. "This feels wrong. I admit, my chest felt tight, like standing at the lip of a stage, not knowing what would walk on from the wings. But I couldn't resist. The camera was already rolling. "We found it, guys," I said, stepping up to the ring. "The bone circle. If local legends are right, this is where two ranchers vanished back in the 1880s. No bodies, just torn up saddles and claw marks on stone." "Don't go in," Jules warned. I stepped inside. The instant my boot crossed the ring, the canyon exhaled. A sudden wind whooshed around us, lifting dust in a choking spiral. My flashlight died. Somewhere out in the rocks, a coyote howled, but halfway through it, pitched up, warping into what sounded like a scream. Not human, not animal. Something else. Jules shouted over the wind. "We need to go!" I backed out quickly, adrenaline buzzing. We made it to the ridge, still laughing nervously as the wind died away just as fast as it came. "That was insane," I said, still recording. Later that night, back at the cabin, we played the footage. My intro looked fine, but right as I stepped into the circle, something flickered. A bone, a long, thin arm bone, shifted just slightly, curling inward like a finger beckoning. We hadn't seen it happen, but the camera had. And I think something saw us too. We barely spoke the rest of the night. The wind never came back, but the air inside the cabin felt different, heavier, like the silence had thickened. I blamed the adrenaline. Jules sat across from me, poking the fireplace embers with the same stick for nearly 20 minutes, not saying a word. I uploaded the footage to my laptop to review it in full. Most of it was what I expected. Dramatic pans of the circle, the stone altar, our breath catching in the dry twilight air. But at timestamp 21:08, right as I stepped inside the circle, the video glitched, just for a second. My voice echoed oddly, lagging a few frames behind my mouth. And when I zoomed in, my face appeared wrong, slightly off kilter, eyes unfocused, almost like a wax dummy version of myself. "Hey Jules, come look at this." He didn't respond. "Jules?" He finally turned, face pale. "You hear that?" I paused. "Hear what?" He shook his head. "Thought I heard you calling me." Just now. From outside. My skin prickled. Number I was here. We both forced a laugh, but I noticed his hand trembling. We tried to brush it off, blamed the altitude, the long drive, maybe even dehydration. But that night, as we sat near the fire pit outside, reality kept slipping at the edges. You remember that ranger's journal? Jules said, eyes fixed on the flame. He wrote about dreams, ones where he saw himself, but something else inside. I nodded, watching him closely. The light from the fire danced on his face. He looked tired, drawn. His lips moved again, still speaking, but I heard nothing for a beat. Then suddenly, the words caught up. Wasn't sure he was real anymore. It wasn't just an audio delay. His voice had lagged behind his lips, like a poorly synced video. We both stopped. Did you? I started. Yeah, he said quickly. A branch snapped out in the dark. We both turned, flashlights sweeping. Nothing. But the feeling of being watched pressed in on us, thick as the night air. We decided to sleep inside. The cabin creaked with every wind gust, though I couldn't tell if it was wind at all. I caught my reflection in the cracked window above the sink as I brushed my teeth. Just a quick glance. Something felt off. Jules was behind me, rummaging in his backpack, but in the glass, his reflection was smiling. Wide, unnaturally wide, except when I turned to look, his face was blank, expressionless. He hadn't moved. You okay, man? He glanced up, confused. Yeah. Why? I didn't answer. Sometime past midnight, I woke up to a sound, my own voice, whispering, from outside the window. I froze. Looks good on camera, it said, exactly how I had said it hours earlier in the circle. Then silence. I sat up, grabbed the flashlight. My heart thudded like a war drum. Jules was asleep on the cot across from me, unmoving. Another sound followed, an owl's call, except it turned, mid-note, into something like a child's giggle. High-pitched. Wrong. I shined the light through the window, empty rocks, dancing shadows. Then I heard Jules stoke the fire, only he already had hours ago. When I turned, he was doing it again. Exactly the same motion, same speed, same hand, over and over, like a loop. His eyes were glassy. Jules? No answer. Jules! He blinked, jerking his hand back, looked around. What the hell? Did I fall asleep? No, I said. You were repeating yourself like... We stared at each other. I didn't say what I wanted to, like you weren't you. Neither of us slept after that. We locked the doors, bolted the windows, but the canyon didn't need keys to get in. Something had changed since we found that circle, and it was starting to change us too. By morning, I could feel it. Something inside me was off. Not just fear, something deeper, like I was slipping out of sync with myself. I barely remembered falling asleep. Jules looked worse. Eyes bloodshot, his hands twitching at odd intervals, like they were trying to repeat a gesture he couldn't remember. We barely spoke. Just brewed instant coffee, muttered a few words. The silence wasn't comfortable anymore. It felt watched. While Jules dozed fitfully in his cot, I reviewed the footage from the night before. That was when I found the first clip. A recording I didn't remember making. Timestamp, 3:15 a.m. The camera sat crooked on the cabin floor, lens partially obscured. The image was grainy in the firelight. It showed me, standing by the door, barefoot, eyes closed, whispering something in a voice that didn't sound like mine. Guttural, distant. I watched myself walk out of frame. The door creaked. The next clip was worse. The camera, still recording, caught Jules. He stood over my bed, just stood there, watching, lips moving soundlessly. Then, slowly, he turned and walked out of frame. Jules, I said, waking him. My voice cracked. You need to see this. He watched without blinking. His face was unreadable. When it ended, he looked at me, eyes wide. I don't remember any of that, he said. Neither do I. He stared at me too long. I could see it in his eyes. He was wondering if I was lying, and I wondered the same. Something had infected our trust. That afternoon, I blacked out, One moment I was eating a protein bar by the fire. The next, I was standing on the edge of a cliff 2 miles from camp, camera in hand. No memory of how I got there. The screen showed I had been filming. The clip. Just my feet walking. Crunching gravel. My breath, slow and measured. Jules found me by tracking the drone. He'd sent it up when he noticed I was missing. "You vanished for 3 hours," he said. I thought it was 5 minutes. We stopped pretending things were fine after that. We turned the cabin inside out. There had to be something we missed. In a hollow beneath the floorboards, behind a panel that looked recently disturbed, we found them. More journals. Notes scrawled on scraps of bark, even a torn ranger's patch. Some pages were dated as recently as 1993, others had no date at all, each one worse than the last. It wears us like coats. It looks through my face. When I blink, it smiles. Don't trust the second voice. It sounds like you. One notebook, dated 1987, was nearly destroyed by moisture, but we could make out pieces. Moonlight stirs it. Bones don't hold it anymore. It mimics, always imperfectly. Look for the flaws. I see my own eyes watching me from the cave. Another entry, clearly older, written in tribal script and broken English, referenced an ancient coyote witch, a shapeshifter bound to the land, exiled by the ancestors. The bone circle was not a shrine, it was a prison, and I had stepped inside. Later, we sent the drone up again to sweep the canyon from above. Jules watched the feed while I calibrated. "Pause it," he said. He rewound, frame by frame, there, near the bone circle. A third figure. It stood perfectly still, partially obscured by brush. No movement, but even from above, we could see it wore old-time clothing, a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat. The face was blurred, warped by the camera's motion. We raced to the spot. Only bones remained, crushed underfoot. A stench of rot clung to the rocks. No sign of the figure, but something had been watching. Jules wouldn't say it aloud, but I saw it in his face. We both knew. This wasn't just legend anymore. It was hunting us, learning us, trying us on for size, and the worst part? I couldn't shake the feeling that it liked me better than him. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of bone. Ribs growing from sand. Skulls whispering. I dreamed I was inside my own body looking out, but someone else was controlling the limbs, like a puppet, like a stolen suit. By evening, Jules and I barely spoke. Something had wedged itself between us, not anger, but suspicion. That drone footage haunted us both. There was a third figure, but who or what had it copied, and why did it show itself now? When I returned from refilling the water jugs by the ridge, I found Jules sitting inside the cabin, perfectly still, back facing me. Firelight flickered against the walls, but he didn't move, didn't even flinch when I came in. "Hey," I said. No answer. "You good?" He turned slowly. His eyes were wrong. Milk white, no pupils, just orbs like smoked glass. And his face, his expression was entirely blank. Not vacant, wiped clean. "Do you think I'm real?" he asked. My mouth went dry. "Jules?" He tilted his head. "Or do you just want me to be?" I backed toward the door. Then it laughed. My laugh, pitch perfect. It stood and took a step forward, but its gait was off. Jittery, like it was adjusting its shape mid-motion. Then it began speaking rapidly, first in Jules's voice, then mine, then both layered over each other. At one point, it even used my mom's voice. "You were afraid of being alone, Ethan. Now you don't have to be. I know you. I know all your names." Its skin rippled, like boiling water beneath the surface. I grabbed the flare gun from the wall, an antique, but better than nothing. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it. "Where is he?" I demanded. "Where's Jules?" The thing smiled wider than any human should. It reached into its coat, a coat Jules didn't own, and pulled out something dark and folded. Then it tossed it to the floor, a hollowed-out skin. I gagged. It was like a deflated suit. Jules's face, mouth frozen mid-scream, collapsed in on itself. I fired. The flare caught it in the shoulder, igniting its shirt. The creature howled, a sound that pierced the walls, the sky, maybe even the bones beneath the dirt. It didn't bleed, just tore open like old bark, revealing sinew and something black and wet beneath. It lashed out, but I dove past it, slamming the door shut behind me. I ran through the canyon, stumbling through brush, scraping my arms raw on rock. Behind me, the howl echoed, but it was changing, splitting, multiplying, like more voices had joined in. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the burial grounds. There, under the broken moonlight, I collapsed beside the stone altar. I remembered the journals, the ritual, the warnings. It wears you when you break the seal. I had stepped into the circle. I had broken it. Now it wanted me too. When I crept back to the cabin near dawn, weapon raised, I found the door swinging open. The thing was gone, but in the corner, curled and shaking, was Jules. Real Jules, or I thought it was. He was naked, covered in dirt and blood. His eyes, they were his. I knew the scar on his cheek from a hiking trip years ago. I knew his uneven breathing. He looked up at me. "It took my voice," he whispered, "but not my name. Not yet." I helped him sit up, my hands trembling. "We have to end this," I said. "It's not done with us," he said. "It never is." We burned what was left of the hollow skin. The smell was unbearable, like rotted leather and burnt hair. The wind carried the smoke toward the canyon, and for a moment, I swear it formed the outline of a face, my face. The mimic had shown itself, played its hand. But we hadn't beaten it. We had only made it angry. We didn't sleep. Jules curled under a musty blanket near the fire, flinching at every gust of wind. I sat beside the boarded window, flare gun in my lap, eyes locked on the door. I kept expecting it to creak open, for the thing to stroll back in wearing my face this time, but it never came, not in the flesh. It didn't have to. Reality itself had started unraveling. I spoke to the camera, trying to anchor myself, just a simple log. But when I played it back, my voice was wrong, not in pitch, but in tone. It was flat, drained of anything human, and sometimes, just for a blink, my lips didn't match the words, like I was being dubbed over by something else. I stopped recording after that. Jules didn't say much. He winced every time he looked at me for too long, as if afraid I wasn't really me. Could I blame him? Half the time, I wasn't sure either. I had a dream, except I was awake. I was in the bone circle again, surrounded by whispering skulls. Across from me stood a second Ethan, barefoot, grinning, eyes black as coal. We both stepped forward at once. Merged. I jolted up, covered in sweat. Except Jules was still asleep. The fire was still lit. It had only been minutes. I checked my pack. My clothes were damp. My boots were coated in dry red dust. Had I gone somewhere? At dawn, I found something that shattered any illusion of safety. My bedroll had been moved to the center of the cabin floor, and around it, perfectly arranged, was the bone circle. Every piece we had seen in the canyon, replicated with charred sticks, animal fragments, even my spare toothbrush carved into a femur shape. But the worst part? I didn't hear a thing in the night. Jules woke to my scream. He stared at the circle, eyes wet. "It's not just watching us," he whispered. "It's inside. It can shape what we see, maybe what we are." We destroyed the circle, again. But I knew it didn't matter. We were marked. In desperation, we combed the journals again. Every scrap of faded ink, a few torn pages offered some thread of hope, fragments of a ritual, an ancient containment rite. Blood, fire, names spoken in a sacred pattern. A binding, not a banishment, but a prison. The circle hadn't been a warning. It was a lock. And I had broken it the moment I stepped inside. Jules pointed out something I missed before. A charcoal sketch buried in the folds of a deerskin pouch. It showed two figures standing over a canyon altar. One held a torch. The other bled from the palm into a shallow stone bowl. Symbols circled the base. Underneath, in trembling script, "Give what it wants but deny it form. Seal the breath. Burn the name." None of it made sense, but I understood the feeling. Whatever this thing was, it thrived in identity, names, faces, memories. That was how it moved, how it wore us. Jules barely spoke now. He kept his eyes down, flinching at sounds that didn't exist. He insisted I take first watch, then second, then stopped sleeping entirely. One afternoon, I returned from gathering firewood and found him talking to someone. No one was there, just him, kneeling in the dust, whispering to a blank wall. "You know what I am," he said softly. "You made me." He didn't even hear me walk in. When I touched his shoulder, he screamed and swung his knife at me, eyes wild. "It's lying!" he shouted. "It's you! I saw your face twist!" I backed away, hands up. "It's me, Jules! I swear!" He stared, panting. The knife trembled in his hand. Then he dropped it, collapsed, began to sob. I held him, or maybe he held me. I don't remember. We were unraveling together, and I didn't know if either of us was still whole. That night, we set our plan. We would return to the bone circle, rebuild the altar, perform the binding. Even if we had to guess at the ritual, we had to try, because if we didn't, we wouldn't just die out here. We'd disappear, and something else would walk out wearing our skin. We left at sunset. Jules had tied his knife to a branch, like a crude spear. I carried the flare gun and a bundle of soaked cloth strips, rags we'd dipped in lamp oil to use as torches. In my pocket was a folded page from the Ranger's journal with the ritual fragments we could piece together. I repeated the chant in my head like a prayer, though it was broken, stitched from dead languages and desperate guesses. The canyon watched us return. Every shadow felt deeper. Every gust of wind carried a whisper not quite human. We reached the bone circle just as the sky turned iron gray. I barely recognized it. The bones had been rearranged. The pillar at the center now bore scratch marks, fresh ones, claw deep and spiraling upward like something had tried to escape. Jules hesitated. "It remembers." I didn't respond. I began laying the bones back into their original ring, whispering the phrases under my breath. Seal the breath. Burn the name. Deny it shape. The sun vanished, and the silence fell like a curtain. Then we heard it. My voice. "Jules, you okay? Where are you? I can't see." From deeper in the canyon, we both froze. "It's copying you again," Jules whispered, trying to draw me out. But the voice kept pleading, desperate, pain-filled. "Please help me. I'm stuck. I think it took you. Please, Jules, I don't know what's real." He looked at me. "It knows we're here." I raised my torch. It always did. Then came a second voice, also mine. "Don't listen to him. That's not Jules." We turned. Two figures approached from the stone ravine, moving in jerks, their feet barely touching ground. Both looked like Jules, every detail exact. The mole on his neck, the old hiking scar, the ragged bandage on his arm. One sobbed, stumbling toward us. "It chased me? I hid. I swear it wasn't me back at the cabin." The other stayed back, eyes locked on mine. "It wants you to doubt. Look at his left hand. I burned it yesterday. He won't have the scar." I stepped forward, heart hammering, raised the flare. "Show me your hand," I told the crying one. He hesitated. I didn't. The flare exploded against its chest. Fire bloomed. The figure shrieked, not in Jules's voice, but a chorus of dozens, male, female, animal, child. Its skin sloughed off mid-scream, revealing a raw red silhouette that twisted and screamed. It lunged. We dove into the circle. I dragged Jules in and slammed the last bone into place, completing the ring. The creature hit an invisible wall. It screamed again. Flames licked its limbs, but it didn't burn like flesh. It cracked like old ceramic. Faces rolled across its form. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all howling. Some were ours, others were strangers. A few wore park ranger uniforms. Jules knelt at the altar, slicing his palm. Blood dripped onto the stone. I joined, cutting my own hand and smearing the rock with both our blood. Then we spoke the chant, fumbling through words, half remembered from dreams, from hallucinations, from madness. Seal the breath, deny the name, bind the hollow skin. The circle flared white-hot. The creature howled again. It tried to push through, but its form warped, stretched thin, distorted by the boundary. "It's working!" Jules cried. "Keep going!" I lit the torch and touched it to the pillar. The stone groaned. A deep, echoing crack shuddered through the canyon. The thing inside writhed. As if caught between identities, its body fragmented. One arm turned childlike, the other twisted and gnarled. It slammed against the circle, screaming our names. Then, slowly, it began to collapse inward, as if pulled by gravity into the altar itself. Bones around us rattled. The wind turned hot. Every face on the creature convulsed, then screamed in unison, "You wore me first!" And with that, it vanished. The stone split. Fire belched upward, and the canyon roared. Jules and I sprinted as the ground shook. The altar cracked in two, releasing a final hiss of smoke. The cave walls began to collapse behind us, burying the circle beneath rubble and flame. We didn't look back. We ran until the rocks turned to sand, until the canyon narrowed into silence, until dawn stretched pale across the ridge. Only then did I turn to Jules, breathing hard. "Did we kill it?" He didn't answer right away. "I think we locked it up again," he said, "but not forever." We kept walking. I didn't tell him what I saw in the fire before it went out, my own face, grinning back at me. We reached the ranger station by noon. Dusty, bloody, half-starved. The lone officer on duty didn't ask too many questions, just radioed in medical evac, offered us water, and kept his eyes respectfully averted. Maybe he sensed we weren't ready to speak. Maybe he saw what lingered in our faces. We told the doctors a rockfall trapped us, and we got lost trying to escape, close enough to the truth. They accepted it, mostly. No one asked about the deeper gashes, about the voices, about the burns on my left palm that formed a near-perfect spiral. A few days later, Jules left. His parents flew him home. He didn't look back. I couldn't blame him. I stayed in Utah another week, rented a room in a quiet town near the base of the cliffs. Every morning I stared at the canyon ridge in the distance. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I just kept replaying it all. The circle, the mimic. The moment our blood sealed it away again, if that's what happened. Then I checked my camera. There was a file I didn't remember saving, time-stamped the night we performed the ritual. The clip showed me standing alone in the circle, only that couldn't be. I was behind the camera when we started. I know I was. In the video, I just stood there, staring blankly at the lens, eyes pale, unblinking. At the very end, I smiled. Then the screen cut to black. I went cold. Later that night, as I brushed my teeth in the motel bathroom, I noticed something. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't. I staggered back, splashed water on my face. When I looked again, the reflection matched me perfectly. Nothing out of place, except I felt off. Empty behind the ribs, like something vital had been scooped out and stitched shut. I called Jules the next morning. He picked up, groggy. We hadn't spoken since the canyon. "Hey," I said, "just wanted to check in." "Ethan?" A long pause. "You sound different." "How?" "I don't know, just not like you." I told him about the video. He was silent for a long time. "You remember what the journal said?" he finally asked. "About the ones it takes? Sometimes it wears them, but sometimes it leaves something behind, a mark, a shadow. You think it's still inside me? I think it might be you, or at least a piece." I laughed. It sounded hollow. He didn't laugh with me. That was our last call. I never uploaded the video, never spoke publicly about Coyote Ridge, but the footage still exists. Sometimes, when my laptop fan hums in just the right frequency, it triggers the autoplay, and the last video rolls. In it, I turn to face the camera. My smile stretches. The voice that comes out says, softly, "I'm still with you." I slam the lid closed, but I still hear it for hours after, that whisper just beneath the floor of hearing. And last night, just before sleep took me, I heard a soft scratching at the motel window, a voice, low and sweet, calling my name. I didn't answer. This morning, there were bone fragments on the floor. I never brought any inside. They were arranged in a perfect ring around the foot of my bed. We escaped the canyon, but I don't think the canyon ever let us go.